Over 200 career goals, 2 Champions League medals, captain of Spain, and yet people still question him. That's the paradox of Alvaro Morata. Because when you first imagine him, when I say his name, it's probably not lifting a trophy or celebrating a huge goal. It's him with his head in his hands after missing another sitter, cutting a frustrated figure on the bench somewhere, or in the midst of yet another transfer to a top club that doesn't quite make sense. For years, Morata has been the internet's favourite striker to laugh at. But here's the thing. Behind the memes is a player who has scored in the biggest European games, World Cup knockouts and European championships. He's played for Real Madrid, Juventus, Chelsea, Atletico Madrid, Juventus again. Clubs who don't really gamble big money on passengers. If Morata was as bad as the jokes suggest, he'd never have lasted at the top level. So how did this guy, a striker trusted by Zidane, Allegri, Simeone and Luis Enrique, become football's punchline? And why is the truth about his career a lot harder to dismiss than a meme? This is episode 3 of Respect the Name with Álvaro Morata.
Pone pelicueta, balón al área, ¿quién se la queda? Morata, Morata, está Morata, gol. ¡Gol!
To understand the Spaniard, you have to start at the beginning. A kid from Madrid rising through the ranks of Real's academy, scoring for fun in the youth teams. By 2010, Mourinho gave him his debut for the first team at just 18 years old. In the coming years, as Benzema, Bale and Ronaldo formed one of the deadliest trios of all time, Morata, as you'd expect, found minutes hard to come by. But he had this knack about him. The late runs into the box, the perfect header, the ability to score and assist in big moments. In 2012-2013, he scored against Levante and Rayo Vallecano, games that actually mattered in the title race. He also assisted 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔 in a Clásico victory. He wasn't the star, but he was the kid who could pop up when Madrid needed depth. The culmination of this breakthrough was the 2014 Champions League campaign, which ended in success, but ultimately saw a desire for more minutes to be the star man. That summer, Juventus said, "We'll take him." 20 million for a backup striker? That's not spare change, but it was a signal that Morata's potential was definitely something to buy into. His 2 years in Turin were a real coming-of-age story, and it's the version of him that I think people forget, because although there were moments of poor form, self-doubt and the sort of mental obstacles that would pop up over the next few years, there were also more and more signs that he was on his way to the very top, set to be a big star on the big footballing stages. Okay, he wasn't a 30-goal-a-season poacher, but he was the link man, the runner, the striker who helped 𝗘𝗫𝗏 and Tevez score regularly and who stretched defences so Paul Pogba could shine. Of course, in sticking with his true clutch self, there were some memorable goal-scoring moments of his own, not at least during his first season when Juventus went all the way to the Champions League final. And who scored in both legs of the semi-final against Real Madrid? Álvaro Morata, of course. The irony was brutal. The academy kid who couldn't quite break through ended up knocking Madrid out of Europe. And that, in essence, has always been the paradox of Morata. Judged negatively on goals, but valuable for everything else. Throughout his first stint in Italy, he seemed to be carving out this niche, showcasing what he was best at while scoring just enough to keep most questions at bay. But that's as normal, let's say, as his career would get for a while. The summer of 2016 was a real turning point for Morata. He got his dream return to Real Madrid, to his hometown. He wasn't the kid making cameos anymore, he was a starting player. But he came home to the same situation, to a house that hadn't really changed. Cristiano Ronaldo, Gareth Bale and 𝗘𝗫𝗏𝗧𝗏 were still there. He obviously backed himself to earn more minutes this time around, and he got them, and he delivered when he got given the chance. In La Liga, he scored 15 goals, his best ever league tally. He was the definition of an impact player. Think of that late winner against Sporting Club in the Champions League group stage, or the hat-trick against Leganés when Madrid needed to rest and rotate. Morata wasn't just filling in, he was producing at every opportunity. But here's the kicker. Even with his goals, even with his numbers, Morata was still behind Benzema in the pecking order. Zidane trusted his fellow Frenchman to glue the attack together, and Morata was left playing the role of super sub. By the end of that season, despite lifting both La Liga and the Champions League, it was clear Morata wasn't going to get the keys to Madrid's attack, and maybe his return was even part of a bigger plan for the club, who knew that for 30 million euros, they were getting a very good asset with incredible sell-on value. Now, whether that's true or not may never ever be known, but 1 year after moving, they did cash in on him. Big time, selling him to Chelsea for around £60 million. That's more than double what they paid to resign him from Juventus. From that moment on, Morata's career moves stopped being seen as a footballing decision and started being branding as a money laundering scheme. Like Juventus, Madrid, Chelsea, Atleti, every time he switched shirts, the jokes followed. Not about his finishing, but about how clubs were supposedly using him as a financial pawn. It became a conspiracy theory at its finest. Morata, the striker so good, he fooled 𝗕𝗓𝗍𝗍 into paying top dollar for him again and again. The irony? He was actually playing some pretty good football in those years, but his legacy became as much about the transfer fees as about the goals that he was scoring, or maybe not scoring. If Juve was the proof of concept and the Real return was the seal of approval at the top level, Chelsea was the start of the downfall. As Antonio Conte's big signing to replace Diego Costa, Morata started like a dream, 6 goals and 6 league games, including a hat-trick against Stoke, but then, after a while, the misses started to creep in. The one-on-one squandered, the headers mistimed, and the offsides piling up.
Every morning Morata woke up, he got flagged offside.
The Arsenal game in particular, 3 golden chances, all wasted, became symbolic of his Chelsea career. Conte defended his star man, but we were starting to see what Gigi Buffon had mentioned during his time at Juve, that Morata could be the best in the world if he only got over his mental hang-ups. He finished with 11 league goals in his first season. Okay, not terrible, but not what you'd expect from a £60 million striker. And in England, there is zero patience. The truth is more nuanced though. His movement was elite. He linked play beautifully and contributed goals, not forgetting that he played parts that year with a chronic back injury. He missed weeks at a time, never really got his rhythm back, and suddenly he looked like a player who was haunted by his own finishing. Every miss went viral, every mistake was a meme, and in the unforgiving Premier League spotlight, the narrative shifted from record signing to flop. Yet the story wasn't finished, because if Chelsea was the chapter of ridicule, Spain would become the chapter of resilience. Whilst Morata's career in the following years with Atletico Madrid and Juventus marked him as a reliable if not frustrating player at times, especially when scoring 3 offside goals in one game versus Barcelona, international football is where Morata's story gets a little bit complicated. His indifferent club form led to him, controversially you could say at the time, missing out on a place at the 2018 World Cup in Russia, where Spain lost their manager on the eve of the tournament and struggled as a result, going out in the round of 16 to the hosts. It was a complete nightmare for everybody involved. Then at Euro 2020, he was back in the squad, leading goal scorer with goals against Poland, Croatia and Italy. But after missing a penalty in the semi-final shootout, God, the abuse just rolled in.
And now faces Donnarumma with Italy 3-2 up.
And it's Morata!
And this Spain's penalty in hand. And it's saved!
He's missed it! He's missed it!
It's 3-2 to Italy after 4 apiece.
Lo había pasado ya muy mal en muchos momentos a lo largo de mi carrera, pero en ese momento era una auténtica pesadilla.
Is this a player short of confidence or short of quality?
They've already got a centre forward that can score goals. So why would they sign another one? I mean,
and guess what? Álvaro Morata missed the chances. And when you have that, if you're Luis Enrique, you have no choice but to take him out.
Probably it's a time for Luis Enrique to maybe have a look on the side and try to find a different player to put on the top.
Me ha pasado por la cabeza también el simular lesiones.
His family were even threatened, his kids were booed at school. Morata became a scapegoat, the face of Spain's failures, even as the man keeping them alive in tournaments and taking them further than they'd gotten in the 3 previous major tournaments. So World Cup 2022 rolls around and he's in the squad, scores in every group game as they fall to the round of 16 penalty shootout again, and it just seems, for whatever reason, nothing is clicking. Between what Morata is bringing to the team and the team's achievements, there just isn't really anything that's lining up. And yet, fast forward to Euro 2024, and things finally fall into place. Not only was Morata there, he was captain by this point. Proof that experiences maketh the man, whether good or bad. Spain arrived with a new golden generation coming through. You had Pedri, 𝗬𝗓𝗏, Nico Williams, new exciting players. And the man to lead them out, wearing the armband, who had seen it all over the years, who'd witnessed the transition from the old guard to the new, was Álvaro Morata. He scored in the group stages, this time against Croatia again, worked tirelessly in the knockouts, and even after being taken out by a security guard in the semi-final against France, he played through to lift the trophy as captain, beating England in the final. The detail is undeniable now. Morata is Spain's third highest all-time scorer at major tournaments, with a record of just under a goal every other game. For a man once booed by his own fans, that is some turnaround. So here's the truth about Álvaro Morata. Yes, he misses chances. Yes, the memes will never go away. But strip that back and what you've really got is one of the most decorated and underrated strikers of his generation. 2 Champions League titles, 2 La Liga titles, 2 Serie A titles, plus even more trophies in England and Turkey to boot, plus a Euro 2024 trophy as Spain's captain. That is not the CV of a fraud. That's the CV of a player who's delivered on some of the biggest stages football has to offer. What makes him so special then is that if you dig behind the numbers, you see all the setbacks too. The Champions League final loss, being left out the 2018 World Cup squad after a tough year in a new country, unnecessary hate in the face of a collective team failure, online mockery that seems to just constantly resurface at every moment, and yet he's still come out with a career that most footballers would kill for. More than a meme, more than a punchline, Álvaro Morata, respect the name.